There is a specific kind of silence you only find at sea. It isn't actually quiet. It's a heavy, rhythmic thrum of waves and wind. But it feels empty, like the world just forgot you existed. But if you head out to the Blackwood Rock Light, a jagged little tooth of stone sticking out of the North Atlantic, you won't find that silence. Instead, you'll hear a piano. It sounds impossible. We're talking about a massive stone tower, miles from the nearest mainland, standing on a rock so small that during high tide, the spray hits the glass of the lantern room 140 feet up. There's no electricity for a sound system, no neighbors for miles, and definitely no room for furniture in a spiral tower barely 12 feet wide. Yet, for over 100 years, locals have called it the music box, because on the nights when the ocean is calm, a slow, lonely waltz drifts across the water, clear as a bell. The story starts with a man named Elias Thorne. In 1924, Elias took the job at Blackwood because he had nowhere else to go. He'd just lost his wife to the fever, and the mainland felt too crowded with her ghost. He brought two things with him: a year's worth of canned rations and his wife's mahogany upright piano. It took 6 men and a system of pulleys to hoist that 500-pound instrument into the gallery room. For Elias, that piano wasn't just wood and wire, it was his wife's voice. He didn't just play it, he talked to it. Then came the Great Freeze of 1927. It was a winter so brutal the salt water actually turned to a thick, gray slush. For 45 days, the lighthouse was an island in a desert of ice. No supply boats could get through, no mail, no human contact. People on the shore would look out through telescopes and see the light spinning. But as the weeks went by, the light started to wobble. It wasn't being cleaned. The soot was building up. When the ice finally thawed, a rescue crew reached the rock. They found the heavy oak door at the base swinging open, rhythmically slamming against the stone. The inside of the tower was coated in a layer of black frost. They climbed those 140 spiral stairs in a silence so thick, it felt like it was pressing against their eardrums. When they reached the gallery, they found Elias. He was sitting at the bench, slumped over the keys. The official report said he froze to death, but the rescuers couldn't stop talking about his hands. His fingers were locked in a complex cord, his skin literally bonded to the ivory keys by the ice. But it was his face that haunted them. His eyes were wide open, staring at the wall, and he was smiling. Not a peaceful smile, a wide, frantic grin, as if he had finally finished something he'd been working on for a long time. But the part that still keeps the locals in the bars talking? As the crew was carrying his body down those narrow, winding stairs, they heard a sound from the room they had just left. Plink, plink, chord. The exact same waltz Elias used to play for his wife started up again. It wasn't the wind whistling through the vents. It was rhythmic. It was intentional. They didn't even look back. They practically dropped the stretcher and rode for their lives. Eventually, the government sent a crew to remove the instrument. They dragged the piano out, loaded it onto a barge, and watched it head to the mainland to be sold for scrap. But that very night, the townspeople across the bay gathered on the docks. The piano was gone, the tower was empty, and yet, the music was louder than ever. It wasn't coming from the room anymore. It was coming from the stone itself. I spoke with a retired Coast Guard technician who went out there in 2022 to fix a beacon. He's a facts and logic guy, not someone who believes in ghost stories. He had to stay overnight because of a sudden gale. He told me he woke up at 3:14 a.m. to the sound of someone practicing in the room above him. He heard a few bars of a song, a mistake on a high note, a long frustrated pause. And then the same part played again, slower, more aggressive. He said the most terrifying part wasn't the music. It was the sound of the piano stool scraping against the stone floor. Scritch. Like someone was adjusting their seat to get comfortable for a long night of playing. So, if you're ever near that stretch of coast and the fog starts to roll in like a thick, white curtain, just stop and listen. Most lighthouses are there to guide you back to safety. But at Blackwood, the music isn't a guide. It's an invitation. And they say that if you stay long enough to hear the song end, you don't get to leave. Because Elias Thorne finally found his audience, and he's not finished with the encore.